and they do hot desking and all sorts of other things for people as well. And got someone else turning up. So yeah, that's it really. Not much of an introduction.
Right.
Paul.
So as Andy said there, I'm Paul Hutson, and I've been doing talks at Suffolk Developers for a number of years now, and all the other pre-incarnations or pre-incarnations of it. And today I'm going to be talking about bots and what they actually do, how they're built. There's going to be a demonstration of how I build some as I go along. So we'll show you, I'll sort of dive in. Hopefully, just double check that guys in here can hear, they can. Cool.
Are you streaming it out?
I'm streaming it via Hangouts. Yes, it's like a new thing. I'm going to try and hang around the computer here so people can actually hear me. So I'm going to talk about, as I say, bots, what they are, where they've come from, why there's a resurgence of them at the moment, and what it really means, and a load of other approaches as well. But then I'm going to focus on the way Microsoft has done it, because that's the way I've been doing it recently, and learned a lot about it. I'm going to show you how to build an example bot. There's some example code that you can take away, or you can clone on GitHub. Take away, and you can actually use it as well. And then I'm going to show you one of the services I've been building on as well. So first up, bots. What are they? So unlike this picture, it sort of tries to demonstrate, and it seems to be everybody uses one of these nice, really pretty pictures to show like a virtual avatar. They're not really like that at all. They're like Facebook Messenger bots or integrations into Slack and things like that, which are text-based interactions. They do specific functions normally. So for instance, you've got people that are ordering pizza via them, via Domino's, or you've got people that are getting insurance quotes. And they're basically a way of trying to not have a human on the end of a line answering your questions as you're going along. It gives you options, it gives you contextual options based on who you are, when it knows who you are, and what you've said so far. It can actually read into what you've actually said to change the queries and things. And I'll talk about that later as we go as well. There's tons and tons of them out there, and I'll show you some of the places that you can actually download bots from. And chances are you've seen bots. If you've ever been on our Slack channel for the Suffolk developers, there's Slackbot, which does a variety of different things, like take notes for you and things like that. And that's a good example of a really easy to use one. And then the other end of the spectrum is people that are trying to create really nice AI-esque bots that are almost realistic, and there's some big not tests, contests every year where people are actually trying to create a real AI-like bot that people interact with, and a lot of that is around about the personality, and people take a long time now to try and make the personality of the entities they're creating actually feel real before they're actually putting the functionality in the background. I think one bit to say is that the bots aren't going to replace people in the end. I know I said that's the idea. They're trying to move away from people being somewhere. They're not actually going to replace people. The people still have to sit in the background. They still have to come up with the ideas of things they're building for now. But there's always the person at the other end that can pick up the conversation if they need to as well. So bots did start back in, just late 1960s, where there was a psychotherapist that was trying to actually analyse people. And then a few years after that, there was another bot, and they were competing together. And then they disappeared for quite a while people weren't really doing much with them beyond that initial AI interaction of trying to say something to something, and it said something back and tries to analyse what you're doing. And we've seen sort of various incarnations over time. 1991, there was a big, as I say, competition that was set up, although for the life of me I can't remember what the name of it is right now while I'm talking. But there's a really big contest, and there's a big prize. I think it's 100 grand if you can make a really proper AI-based bots that will actually talk to people. They've slowly come back over time. So just recently, Microsoft and Facebook, the CEO of Microsoft, and I think it's marketing director or product director at Facebook, have started talking about bots and how they're the next big thing and the next thread. Now, there's a lot of hype around that last year, and in reality, the hype has sort of disappeared a little bit in the background. Interestingly, Facebook have got quite a lot of bots out there in their marketplace, and also you can create bots fairly quickly for their messenger system, and you can do that via a number of different methods. Microsoft have got a bot type framework as well, and they've also got bot services on Azure that you can just host and spin up, and they all work as they go along. Microsoft did try to run a sort of AI interactive bot that was mimicking of, I think its name was Tay, on Twitter, mimicking a 13-year-old girl. And people started manipulating it and throwing different questions at it in the chat. Soon turned a bit dodgy, and to say the least. But and they took it down within a day. But it got to the point where George W. Bush was apparently the person who started the war in Gulf and all those sort of things for undesired effects. But the thing is, the human interaction, I think, is actually still an important part of why we're using the bots. And they were trying to do something clever where it was learning from the people it was talking to, without really thinking that everybody on the net is going to definitely try to break that the moment it arrives. So like I said, there's tons of different approaches. If I just show you a few of them. So the Kick framework is something that's been around actually since before the current revolution of chatbots that are coming out there. It's a framework where you can submit your bot and it connects to lots of other places. They've got a huge marketplace, and if you download the links, you can, or download these slides, you can actually see the bots they've actually got on offer, and they integrate with things like Facebook and things like that, and the other way around. Slack bots, so there's loads of those. I talked about Slackbot earlier, but there's loads of other ones, and they've got a website that's a load of brilliant bots that are there, although I'm not sure all of them are that brilliant as such. The Microsoft bot framework, so this one's more of, it's not really, there are marketplaces of the bots, but really they've created a system where you can connect to lots of other systems with your code, and then it will just distribute the code out of that system as it goes along. And then It's Alive is just it's a nice little integration, but it basically creates a nice Facebook bot. Literally a few minutes later, you can actually have it integrated into your site, and you can have it talking and things like that. So it's like one of those, like a bit like Toggle I was talking to somebody earlier. It just does one thing, and it does it really well. It's quite nice. Just go back to that. And then lots of other tools have sort of got on the wagon as well. So Discord, which is like a voice over IP type system, is started to add bots. Lots of systems have webhooks that are often used as bot sort of extenders, or the places where the bots can actually get into the system as well. And then, as I said, Facebook has got a really big bot framework as well in the background. So I said I was going to talk about the Microsoft approach. This is like a video, it's part of their marketing stuff, but it actually sort of does work that way. Essentially, most of the time, and you can see there's options that come up, but most of the time it will do things like, so here is trying to show you the person's recent orders that they've got, the order details, then you have to talk back to it, and it contextually says, you've had 38 orders in the last year, which one of the orders is it you want to order again? It says, oh, I think it was the one between April and March, so it takes April and March and creates a query based on that, and it goes back into the system and gives them the likely results, and then they can choose which one they actually want to record and order. So you can see here it's trying to fake the fact someone's typing quite quickly. They don't work quite that quick either.
Well, disconcerting if they came back that quick.
Yeah, I suppose it. Yeah, I suppose it takes away the illusion of being a real person, or not a real person. So, as I said, it connects to your service provider. So I don't know if my next slide. Yeah. So you can create your code in whatever system you want. I've done it in .NET today, and I've hosted it on Azure. But you can do it in PHP, whatever it is, as long as when it receives a message, it processes it in some way, and then it passes back a message to the system again. Once you've done that, it's a sort of three-phase thing. You have your own code deployed wherever it is, doesn't really matter. Then you have the bot framework that sits here that you connect your code to, and then it connects out to, you can see the list of all the different places there it's got at the moment. And then if any one of those places uses your bot, it connects back to your main area, it processes it and passes it backwards and forwards like a translation layer. That's quite cool in a way, because it means originally, when I was writing my project, I'll show you in a minute, originally I was trying to write implementations for each thing, and then this came along and it took all that pain and effort away. Now there's one implementation, one back end, and it just works through a system, almost. Is that all making sense so far? Yeah. And they also give you really quick sort of like buttons, so when you've actually configured them, you can drag the code out, the add to Skype and add to Slack and add to any of those things. You can drag those out and it just instantly works on your website, so you can drop them in there. And the web chat they've got here is actually configurable, and I'll show you in a minute. But you can literally take the code and you can put it onto your website, and you've instantly got a helper bot sitting on your website for whether it's sales or selling you something or customer interaction support, whatever it is. You can actually get that information fairly quickly through it as well. Not really sure why you'd want to do it via email or SMS. That could be quite long-winded.
I'm assuming Telegram isn't an actual Telegram.
To be fair, I haven't gone down to the bottom of the list so much. I've sort of focused around the top, but I'm assuming not. But again, that would be quite long-winded.
I guess you could have plenty of processing time to work out what you're going to say back.
Yeah. So, Bot Builder it's an open source tool. You can download it from Git, and then you can compile it with Visual Studio, and it provides you with, well, as it says there, an SDK for Node, Net, and REST, and gives you a simple way of actually building bots. So you can actually build your conversational elements, and the hard bit really is building enough conversational trees as they are to actually provide you the real information you want. It can provide images, cards, videos, docs. So cards are like those bits you saw in the video a minute ago that show you here's a product. The videos, documents, and you can call it as well, but I'm not really sure what you do with the calling. I haven't done that yet. Weirdly, there's an online-offline chat emulator, so some of the bots are actually built to be able to interact with you even if they're not actually online in the first place. I'm not really sure exactly how they do those, but it builds it in the functionality. And then for those, you can see it at the moment, although I think it's at the bottom of the video, they link to the cognitive services. So AWS have got a lot of cognitive services, machine learning type elements, and so have Azure now. It's that race. I think AWS developed it, and then Azure came along and here's the same thing, and they keep going backwards and forwards. But essentially, it takes your language and tries to interpret what it is you're actually trying to mean. So, to say that, in the case of the video we saw a moment ago, it said, when was your order? And he said, oh, I think it was between April and May, and it would take April and May, create an actual query in a set query parameter string, and say it needs to be between these two dates based on what you've said. But it can also interpret how you're feeling, so it can give you different types of responses based on what it is you're actually talking about or how you're typing. So if you're typing angry, it can be nicer to you, whereas if you're just being straightforward, it just be straightforward back to you. But that takes time, again, using the form flows and actually trying to build proper conversation based on what it is, the different type of language settings. There's a lot of setup to actually get them to feel like a real conversation. And then I mentioned earlier, Azure have got a bot service, so you can actually deploy straight into Azure a bot service that will actually connect up to, well, you can host your bot from that bot creation tool within the service really quickly. It's free. You can get a lot of free credit in there, and you can actually just host it all for free. And I'm hosting my stuff in a minute, which you'll see all for free as well. It's really, really quick to set up, and you just deploy it straight out of your system into it, and then connect it up via the bot framework, which I'll show you in a moment. So I'm going to show you how to build an example bot. So I go quite quickly when I'm talking, but this bit will be a little bit slower, and then it'll go fast and slower, maybe. You can ask me lots of questions at the end for the bits you've missed as I've been going along. So before I start, though, they have a few tools that are really cool as well. So the framework emulator is really, really easy to actually build and test what you've been building and whether your bot is going to work across the framework. And I'll show you that in a moment. It sends messages across, and you can see in the bottom right there are a bunch of different calls going backwards and forwards, and you can examine what's actually been sent backwards and forwards, and it makes it really easy to debug. Literally doesn't take very long to set up. It's just downloadable and installable. Works on Mac as well as it does on Windows as well, and Linux, I think. And there is actually at the bottom there, you can't really see it very well. When you download it, there's actually a link to that as well. I've just said it somewhere. You can download all of this, and I'll make the link available at the end via my GitHub, and it includes the talk slides, and it also includes the demo code that we've got in a minute as well. So, okay, so I'm going to stop running my talk. I just run the same solution. It's always good, isn't it? So, who uses Visual Studio here, or has used Visual Studio? Good. Yep. So some people are familiar, some people aren't. So we had a talk a little while ago about Visual Studio versus Vim, and it's the opposite ends of the spectrum there completely. But it's I like it. It's what I grew up with, so that's why I use it. I don't like Vim. So it's a fairly easy sort of setup. Basically, the most basic, I could write a bot that would actually work. I'll just talk you through a few of the pieces. In the web config, the standard web config is just extended with this app setting here, which is the bot ID, the app ID, and the app password. That all comes from the bot framework. If you don't put those in when you're first building it, you don't need to include that in your emulator. So at first, it's worth not putting all that in, and then when you actually come to actually publishing it onto your service, that's when you actually want to start using it. And the only other thing is I've put in there is the protocols for gets and posts. Well, I'm not really sure what's needed. In my global application file, so the file that's holding, well, is run when it first starts up, and it holds lots of global variables if I want to do it that way. Don't have to do it that way, but in this case, it's holding a global list of bot clients that are connected to the system, and it's initialized in this section here when the application starts, and then I register where the API calls are actually going to be going. This config here is just really basic. It's just showing how the information is going to be passed from the calls that are coming in through the system and then off into this API controller, and where those are actually going to be sent to, which is messages controller, where the fun bits, the magic-y bits actually happen. So this takes in a post. When the bot client arrives, it has an activity. If it's a message in this particular case, it's just going to respond with the length of the message, and then it's going to send that message back saying what it is. So literally about as simple as you can get as a client goes. There are in the system lots of different other activity types, like for instance on update. So when you first open up Skype, for instance, Skype actually sends a call to a service and says, give me all the messages since last time I was here, and then all those messages get sent back, and you can actually integrate with that and send over other information and stuff in between that. So for instance, if you wanted to have an insurance quote, but the insurance quote's changed since you last looked at it, you could actually reformat it and resend it back over, or at least say it's different. There's other ones like on open, on close, on add friend, on add contact, on call. Yes.
For the update one, can you block what the default behaviour is, or can you only append onto it?
You can only append onto it, as far as I can see, because the comments in the chat has already happened.
Okay. I was just wondering if you could give someone, say, a summary of what had happened previously.
You could do that. Yeah, you could get the details, and then but you still have the stuff at the top. Then it would have that extra summary underneath it. Yeah. So it responds, and some other pieces here that aren't as useful is the bot client is the connecting entity then creates a new connecting client. So where the connections actually come from, the address it's going back to, the type of service it's actually being used. So you'll see that you do need to format your messages differently depending whether on Slack or Skype or in the web, because they just don't all work the same way. Most, except for Skype, all work in exactly the same way, and then Skype's got a slightly different way of doing it. And so, yeah, here's some other types, so like ping and whether they're typing and things like that. So you can see you don't send messages if they're in the process of typing something out, etc. And then we've got some other bits. So this is the send message function. So it simply creates a connection, creates a new message, sticks all the message information in there. So that it's a message, who it's from, the conversation it's going to, the recipient, and the text message. And then it just tries to send it out in a asynchronous way. So it waits for a moment and then just sends out the data. Does that all make sense? Anybody got any questions on that so far? Maybe it's making sense. And then we have finally the simplest homepage in the world. So it runs, and there's a button that when it's clicked, just sends a ping to all of the different clients that are connected across the system. So you can talk to everybody all in one go, and because they're all connected to the application isn't stopped, they've not disconnected, they suddenly get a message that comes out to them as well. So in somewhat silly ways, I'm told, usually when you don't do so many live demos, but I'm going to give it a go and see if it actually works. So it fires up on the iOS Express directly on the machine, so it's not actually running in the cloud. And then I'm just going to run this, which takes a few moments to start up. So that's the emulator, so I can show you how it's actually passing the information backwards and forwards. While I'm waiting for that though, here is the bot framework as well. So it's preview, and it always worries me a bit when somebody says preview, because there's lots of things that disappear after being preview, but this one seems to be around for a little while. It's fairly easy to register a bot. When you register your bots, they come up in a list, and you can see Slack mod in a moment, but the Suffolk Devs bot for now is just a simple bot. So if we run it the first time, it's going to fail horribly, and then it will run fine. So it's connected to Skype, so I can show you on Skype, and it's also a web chat. The web chat is actually this thing here. So I said earlier, you can actually take your web chat elements, they give you the code, and you can literally just drop the code directly onto the website a moment later. And it's a really simple setup, so you literally only have a few pieces, and in my case, it's the website that I've set it up onto on Azure. Again, it's all free, with my API messages bit that's going to handle the calls, and everything that gets then sent to this is then sent via the API messages into my system that then responds and goes back out again. This is the app ID that I had earlier, and there's some other pieces that your secret stuff that you can get as well, managing your app ID and password. Not that it's very secret because it's in my code base and all committed at the moment, but there we go. So you can test it, and I can talk to it. And then once it goes across, it tells me how long my string was. So exactly as the code said a moment ago, you can see that all working. I don't know why the emulator hasn't fired up yet, but it's obviously having a moment. In Skype, you can see the same sort of thing. Although it's not letting me do it. It lets me do it on my mobile version, just not on my bit at the moment. But again, when I send across the thing, it says how many there are. And if I go to the live website, sure I am, and then I ping all the clients, it errors. I don't know why it does that yet. I didn't fix it last night when I was trying to run through stuff. But it does send the ping. So it does ping all the clients that connected to the system. Interesting, that error doesn't happen in localhost, and I don't know why, but I thought it was 11 o'clock last night, and I thought, no more. So you can see it's really quick and easy to actually show how the pieces are actually set up. And if I wanted to set up say a Slack integration, I simply go into it, like so, and it talks you through literally line on line how to set up each of the pieces, what you need to copy into the different sections. So it makes it as easy as it possibly can. And they're keeping relatively on top of the changes that happen in platforms. So somebody's actively updating this all the time, so you don't go into it and think Slack doesn't look like that anymore at all in its platform. It still looks and works pretty much the same way. Facebook's not quite the same. They keep updating it. Obviously, it's a bit harder to set them up. So it's really quick and easy to build something into the platform in that way. Let's think. I think that's my demo stuff there. Yep, that's all demo bits. So, I said earlier, I've been building a platform. Myself and a few of the guys at work, we're doing a game jam. So I like building games, and almost all of my talks involve a game in some way at some point, and this one's no different. So we've been doing game jam. It's a retro game jam, and so we're trying to build something that was a little bit like things that were happening 10 plus years ago, but also with a bit more of a modern twist in some cases as well. So we came up with something called Slack mud, and I'll give you the address in a minute. But it's a mud. So who knows what a mud is? So if we use those. Yep. So multi-user dungeon or multi-user domain, depending on how you want to say it. They were built originally in the late 70s, and originally they were actually implemented at the University of Essex. So so just down the road, and they had like tons of like phone dial-in points where people could dial in from all over the world, and people were running up huge bills, like £2 a month type bills back then, to actually connect up to these multi-user domains, which are multiplayer, interactive type places. It's all text-based, so it's not quite as cool as stuff you get there now. But at the time, it was obviously cutting edge. There was nothing else that you could do in that sort of way. Typically multiplayer, role play, and puzzle based. So you go in there and there's lots of things you can do, activities you can build communities, etc. And then it's the grandparent of modern day MMOs, so massively multiplayer online games like EverQuest and World of Warcraft and those sort of things. There's actually a direct transition from the old mud code directly through to the stuff that's actually being played out there at the moment as well. So the features, so while we build a game every time, this one's actually an engine, so it's all open source as of the end of this as well, but you can download it and it's completely configurable. Using just JSON files that sit in the background, you can configure an entire world, you can configure your conversations, so you can set up your bots or NPCs as we've called them. They can have conversations, they can have responses, they can have tasks in those, they know who you are because you've connected to it before. There's locations you go to in the world, and I'll show you that all in a moment. There's skills that you can learn in the game, like you can learn how to fish in one bit of it. And you can also pick up objects. There's fishing rods, so you need a fishing rod to be able to fish, etc. And they all tie together in lots of different ways. And then, as I said, the character or bots have conversational structures, so they know who you are, they know what you've done before, how you've interacted with them. They can change their interaction based on your interactions with other people. So if you talk to somebody, for instance, you start becoming a magic-y type person, the religious-y type people in the game don't really like you, and vice versa. And there's sort of like there's interactions in that way. We built it so it just works. So you download it, you compile it, and you can just push it up to the server, and it'll just work straight away. It deploys directly into Azure, which is what I think. Yeah. So easy to set up on Azure. It's all free, and we'll show you the free hosting bit in a moment. We've built in all the WebSocket and bot framework deployment type stuff, so you don't have to work on any of those pieces. You just have to plug in your ID, change your JSON files, and you've got a whole brand new game. And well, I was going to demo that, but it takes a little bit too long to set up a game compared to it, so I'll show you some pieces in a minute. So demo. So this is it, and then so it's text-based stuff. So you can see who I was, Rob Stewart. I don't. It doesn't matter. And who's in a location, what's actually in the place. There's lots of commands you can throw at it. So you can say hi, and it then goes through it. If I make my way down to south, because I think Rob, who's sitting in the audience as a plant, is hanging around, so he can say hi back. I say. So there. So it's multiplayer, so people can actually all interact with each other all in real time. There's NPCs that are there, so you can see there's a guard soldier that's hanging around. There's other NPCs in the world. If I pop into the pub, there's a nice barman who's offering me choices of things to do based on who I am and whether I want to buy things. So I could buy a beer. And he gives me a beer. And then he likes me a little bit more. So there's like a standing system in the game, and the more I buy beer, the more he likes me, and the friendlier he gets, and the cheaper it becomes. So that's how the game's actually set up in that way, and you can then build things, you can craft things in the world, so you can change it as you go along as well. So yeah, that's the way it works. Now in the background, if I load up the code, which I should have probably had before open.
Do you run into text limitations on some of the platforms in terms of the length of messages, or are they all fairly open?
Some of the messages we send are huge, because you can set your own description. So we've had some testers playing the game, and they've set their own description for their characters, and they're like, when we've tested it, it's like 3 lines where we've just said, I'm a tall bloke, and the testers have just been writing huge like bios about who they are and what they've been doing based on what skills they've managed to get in the game. So it's quite cool in that way. it's always the way when you actually try and open something. It's really quick when you're at home, and then probably not when you're being and recording things. And it's all mobile based, so in the talk, you can just find it there and it will just take you to the link, so you can play it on mobile as well as inside the website. So as I say, it's all generated with JSON in the background. So if we load up that nice barman, you can see that it has information about him, the character type of setting, etc. And there's some bits that are RPG-like. But the cool bit is when you get into the conversations, there's lots of hooks. So when a player enters an area, leaves an area. So these are much like you'd have in a normal bot type situation where you have somebody start a conversation or leave a conversation or send you something or do something like that. It has all the hooks built into it. So again, it's very easy to take what I've got here and then build it into an actual bot that you could use in a way. And in that way, I can also interact via Skype. Look, my character went to sleep, so I didn't get beaten up while I was away. And then I'm going to pop downstairs again, and then out into the road. And then there'll be Rob again, hanging around as well. And if my character went back, he'd be able to say the same sort of stuff. So you can see that I'm in that area as well. And then also in Slack. There's a nice integration of how it actually works as well. So you can see the same way that's working across all of them, and that's using the same back end that's then going through the framework, that's passing out the information to everywhere in the system and treating it in the same way. And all those people are in the same world at the same time. That's very low bandwidth. So that's the link again, if anyone wants to have a go. Do you have any questions on that bit? No.
So are you into your own, so say you've got database software, you're able to actually, supposedly you'd be able to embed that in. Is there anything actually you need to do?
Not really. It's built, the reason we built it that way was just so you literally download it or clone it, you can change a few pieces and then you can just upload it straight into Azure again, and it works. It's just built on a basic website, and you don't have to configure anything, you have to change anything, it works right out of the box.
Sorry, I was thinking about the bot itself.
So in the bot side of it, so you can take the web bot that was there on the page I showed you. So this bot here is also this web chat here, and you can get the embed code.
So you can embed web chat in.
Yeah. Yeah, you can embed it into your website. You can add a new website. And then you generate some secret keys, and then you embed it with your iframe, so people can't copy it across from other places into other bits, so you end up only being able to embed it on your own website. And yeah, it basically does exactly the same thing as we had on that one I just showed you a moment ago in the corner. So it looks a lot like this one here, basically, but it works out the box again, so you can just embed it onto a page pretty easily. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So for the one embedded to your website, the data, who owns it? Is it Microsoft?
So there's when you actually publish it, you have to put your own privacy links and data privacy and terms and conditions and things like that linked against it. So you own the data. The data goes through their service, but you own it. It's all encrypted across HTTPS, so they can't get to any of it theoretically. To actually then unencrypt it, but you have to provide privacy links, otherwise they won't even let you publish the bot out there either.
Thank you.
No worries. So if I go back to that, so there's a source code link there, so you can go and get it. So just before the proper questions, but as I said earlier, I don't think bots are going to be the all-singing, all masterful interactions that people think they were going to be as of last year when everybody was talking about it. But I do think they're going to be something you're going to see a lot of over the next little while. You're going to see more people interacting with them through Facebook. You're going to be speaking to sort of support staff that are run by these bot sort of systems that then hand you over to somebody else. You're going to see a lot of interactions with web places like, say, Twitter, where they've already got bots running in the background that are picking up information, doing support type stuff, replying to direct messages, then they're before handing over to other people as well. I think the really important thing is, now they've started down that path, they're just going to get clever and clever as they go along. More people are going to be building the information into those, the conversations are going to get more advanced, and it's going to feel more real as you go along. And that's the end point, is people want to feel like they're talking to a real human, but they know they're not really, but they want to feel like they're actually getting proper interactions off the back end of it. So then, any actual questions other than the ones we just had a minute ago?
Why did you get the documentation to learn what you've done with the Microsoft environment?
So it's actually on the Microsoft website. There's some. If you go to the bot framework, the homepage, there's just links. They just link all of it there. It's all open source. You can just go and play with it in whatever way you want. But they've linked how to actually build all the various elements in there. There are example projects, a bit like mine, that are done for MVC. They've done some for Node. You know, there's lots of different ways they've actually tried to expose those sort of pieces of code and make it really easy for people to start up. The code's not always terribly useful. I was able to use one of their simple examples. I think that's simpler in the end to actually get something running. Stefan first. Yeah.
Is Microsoft providing you with anything to make it smart? Because you mentioned natural language processing at the beginning.
It doesn't do it via that, as far as I know, but they have got a natural language processing type in Azure, yeah, again, and also machine learning type pieces that you could hook into it as well. I guess just through the .NET framework anyway in the background, you can connect your back-end code to the other bits in Azure to do other things that you want to do as well.
So they're just providing the environment to capture messages from all those services.
Yeah, and then process them through and then back through again. So it's like we were saying earlier, if people are just building like specific things now, and then you link all those things together in building blocks rather than trying to provide everything all in one go.
Okay.
Have you done anything with ChatOps?
Nope. What is ChatOps?
ChatOps is where you have your ops that manage how your service or your product that you're running is going, and you might have continuous integration monitors on each of your servers, something else, and then when one of your servers is on fire, it pings you in Slack or in Skype or whatever and goes, hey, this server's on fire, and you go, cool.
So
and then phone the fire department, or you automated to send a Slack message to the fire department.
At work, we use through Slack, we use a tool for provisioning and setting up new services and deploying code bases and all sorts of stuff. So we have got something like that. Yeah, but I don't use it. Rob uses it a lot. I think Rob set it up, so he'll be able to answer lots of questions about that.
Oh, Hubot, yeah. Hubot's been around for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, we're really only using Hubot as a way of calling out to SailPoint to put in setups and labs to actually handle sort of the heavy lifting of those sort of deployments and integrations. But yeah, quite a lot through Slack. It's quite an efficient way of doing it.
And also exposes it to everybody, so everybody can see what's going on rather than just one or two people, which is nice.
Is anyone else using anything like that in their workplace?
I've got friends who use the Slack API to tell them things like that, whether it's on fire or the build finished or probably within an hour.
I've never actually had a server catch fire. So, yeah.
Lucky.
I have.
You have.
It's like with Power BI for that's more natural language processing stuff. They showed me all my sales for March last year, and they create a chart for me based on these phrases.
But I think it's using the Azure stuff in the background to actually process those bits of language stuff through the Power BI interface, as far as I can see. Yes?
In your bot interface, like on Microsoft Portal, you have messaging endpoint, which I guess you could see if you run if you look at the HTTP traffic on your computer or on other people's computers. Would anything prevent you from randomly sending messages to those? For instance, if you create a bot that asks the questions that authenticates your customer, like what's your employment number or what's your customer reference number, and people just send random things and try to break into it.
So they could try to break into it, but it's also there's other registration points you use when you do that. Same as you do if you put your employee identification number in there, they'd try and say, and now pick something out of this list about who you are, or they try and authenticate or send them a message to your company mobile, for instance, or whatever it is, to try and authenticate you. But once they've actually identified you, lots of the bots then say, that person, we know who that is now that connects via that one. They'll never ask you that question again, and it's now stored. So when you next interact with it, it already knows about you, who you are. So there's energy companies that are doing like billing type inquiries and things like that, where you initially set up your account link, and after that, every time you say message them through Facebook, they'll now know exactly who you are. You'll be able to get your bill information about how much electricity you've used or gas or whatever it is. So I think probably it's the same as all things really. There are malicious ways of trying to get into those, but it depends on how you build your system to actually try to prevent that fraud. I don't think the service itself stops it, because it's actually based on your code, because it just passes the messages backwards and forwards through that system. Any other questions? Good. So thank you everybody for coming along. If you have any other questions at any point, just you can either tweet me, or you can send me a message on Skype when I pulled up Hutson on there, or email me or message on the Suffolk Developers Group, and I'll be happy to help out.
Thank you very much.
Didn't have anybody at home,
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming along. Typically some of us will head on to the pub next. There's the